Good morning. My name is Kristin Song. My son Ethan was killed on January 31st, 2018, at a neighbor's house with an unsecured firearm. I wanted to share with you the first couple of days of my life sentence and the first couple of days of Ethan's death sentence. The winter of despair. I saw a woman last year. Her eyes sparkled, her posture was relaxed, her movements were deliberate and full of energy. She smiled, laughed, and loved to tell anyone who would listen, seize the day. She begged for a third child. Her husband didn't realize she wasn't done bringing life into this world. Her third child arrived on a beautiful winter day. Her family was finally complete. She felt at peace. She used to tell people her heart grew 3 sizes that day. Her heart overflowed with gratitude because she knew she was blessed. She was a confident mother and took her responsibilities seriously. She worked hard to make sure her 3 children felt loved and cherished. Her most treasured moments were when her family was together at dinner time, on vacation, or trapped in a long car ride. She loved the noise, but she also loved when the house was quiet at night and her children were tucked in their beds. They were safe. She did her job. Her children grew into teenagers and she fell more in love with them, even when she received phone calls like, "Mom, I'm okay, but I totaled the car." Or, "Mom, don't freak out. I broke my nose in 3 places." Or when the school called and asked if her third child was planning on handing in any homework ever. She understood these were trials, rites of passages. Nevertheless, they were surmountable and good learning lessons for her children. Like shoots from a healthy tree, her children branched off from her. She marveled at their personalities, dreams, kindness, and yes, their occasional grumpiness. She promised them there's nothing this family couldn't get through together. I see a woman, her eyes are dull, her posture slumped, her movements as if by rote. She walks in a stupor, getting through the days but numb in heart, mind, and body. Tears have replaced her smile, her energy is gone, and she wonders how she will get through the next half an hour, much less the remainder of the day. The physical pain is so intense she can barely breathe. What used to bring her pleasure and great joy has disappeared like smoke in a strong wind. Memories, terrifying reminders of what used to be. She no longer thinks about vacations, summer evenings under the stars, or Christmas mornings. All these pleasures have been sacrificed just to survive. Life is a roller coaster of emotions ranging from panic attack, anxiety over what will happen to her other children, to disbelief that her life is shattered into a million pieces. She doesn't sleep much, and when she does, he visits her at night, calling to her. She runs in a circle like an agitated caged animal, trying to get to him, but he slips through her fingers and slowly fades away. A noise awakens her. She realizes she is sobbing. "Why, God? Please tell me why, my beautiful boy." She would have happily traded places with him in an instant. She straddles 2 worlds, one with him, her lost son, and one with those who remain. She stretches her arms. She can no longer hold all 3 children at once anymore. She gets up every morning, dreading another day without her son. She has failed as a mother. She sits with her coffee in the kitchen and contemplates suicide. Ah, that sounds lovely. No more pain. Her older son grabs her hand and says, "I will not survive if I lose another member of this family." How does he know? Am I so obvious? She accepts she has no choice but to live. The woman who was once vibrant, happy, optimistic, warm, and loving withdraws to protect what's left of her emotional stability. Her isolation affects the others, her prizes, her delights, her husbands, and her children. She deals with her heartache and stands neck deep in theirs as well. I wrote this piece about a week after my son was killed. I was so shocked by the change in me. I didn't recognize the person that stared back at me in the mirror. And I continued writing because it was the one way that I could release the incredible pain that bubbled inside of me every day. And so I just wanted to share with you just the first couple of days from Ethan's point of view and from my point of view. January 31st, 2018, morning, Ethan's voice. I heard the heat click on. The shower started. My brother had to be at school at 7:30 a.m. I was getting my braces off this morning, so I didn't have to get up yet. The smell of the coffee wafted up to my room. It was such a comforting smell to me. It meant my parents were downstairs planning out the day. It was part of the rhythm of our lives. I should be getting up, but it's so warm in my bed. Just a few more minutes. I turned on my music. Angel by Jimi Hendrix was playing. I played the song for my mom the other day in the car. She said it made her sad because it's about losing somebody you love. Mom, listen to the guitar. The way he brings jazz into it. Jimmy's a force. Yeah, but it still makes me sad. She brushed a piece of my hair out of my eyes and smiled. I like to tease my mom when we were in the car alone. Mom, have you ever heard of Van Halen, Journey, or U2? It always made her laugh. Yes, I grew up on those bands. I always chuckled. I know, I just loved seeing her laugh. I'm finally getting my braces off. That may not be a big deal to everybody, but it's a big deal to me. It's been a long process. First, I had this contraption in my mouth to fix my bite. It was painful, annoying, and it made it hard for me to talk. It actually made me lisp, something my mom thought was adorable. Then 3 years of metal. My mom kept telling me it was a gift to have a beautiful smile. I guess it can't hurt with the ladies. 6 months ago, I had major surgery to correct my breastbone from growing inward. Dr. Katie, my surgeon, told me the recovery would be painful, and after surgery, I would be on a morphine drip for a while. He would send me home with some Oxycontin. When my mom heard that, she almost freaked out. She spent a lot of time warning me about the risk of drugs and the opioid crisis. So to shut her up, we agreed she would hold the pills. I only took 7 pills. My doctor was super impressed. What can I say? I'm song strong. The morning of the surgery, I was terrified. I almost jumped out of the hospital bed when they came to wheel me to the operating room. But I was determined to go through with it because I hated how my chest looked and how it impacted my breathing. My mom and dad calmed me down. My mom gently stroked my face and said, Daddy and I will be right here waiting for you. I promise I won't leave your side when you come out of surgery. I smiled. I knew she wouldn't. I'm doing well in school. Next year I will be in all honors classes. I have a great group of friends. I'm healthy, and most importantly, I will be taller than my brother. What's not to love? The one thing I'm still trying to figure out, though, is girls. I told my mom I was having trouble talking to them. They're confusing. Mom, my biggest cheerleader, tells me, I'm a catch. You are funny, smart, and adorable. Honestly, what else is she going to say? She's my mom. I kind of like this girl in my class. It took all of my courage to text her. It didn't work out, but I'm glad I tried. My mom said it was good practice. I wondered what it felt to be like. I wondered what it felt to be in love. I bet it's incredible. I knew it was time to get up. I heard Evan leave for school and my mom running up the stairs, singing, good morning to you, good morning to you, good morning, sweet Ethan, good morning to you. She's been singing that song to me since I was a baby. On the way to the orthodontist, I played her Ramble On by Led Zeppelin. After the song stopped, she looked at me and said, how about Ramble Off? I laughed. I guess she's not a fan. Mom, today is going to be a good day. She looked over at me, grabbed my hand, and smiled. Yes, today is going to be a good day. It took a while to pry all that metal out of my mouth, but finally I was freed. My mom stared at me and gave me a big hug. Then she announced to the entire office, he is so handsome. Pretty embarrassing, but I kind of liked it. Well, I walked a little taller on the way out of the orthodontist's office. It was around 10:30 a.m. when we got back into the car. I slid my tongue over my teeth, so slippery. Mom snapped a picture of me and texted it to Dad. Look, no braces. We should go out to breakfast and celebrate this momentous occasion, I declared. My mom hesitated. You really should go back to school. It's a half day, I said with a smile. Okay, she laughed. I threw my backpack in the back seat. Let's roll. I gotta say, we were both in great moods, and we had the best conversation over breakfast. I told her I wanted to go to Rice University, join the Army, marry, and have 7 children. My mom shouted, 7 children? I think you better ask your wife first. I thought about it and decided, yeah, that's probably a good idea. Mom, when I have my own home, I want it to be loud, fun, and loving, with awesome kitchen dance parties like our home now. My mom held my hands, looked into my eyes, and said, you've got this. You have your whole life ahead of you. I munched on my bagel and lox and thought, yeah, I do got this. At home, I played with my foster dog, Mouse. on the floor. The sun streamed through the window. It felt nice on my face. My mom rounded the corner and just stared at me. What? I'm just drinking you in, she said. Whatever that means. She said this stuff to me all the time. Steve stopped by after school. We cracked each other up, what my mom called teenage boy humor. Finally, my mom popped her head into the bedroom. What are you boys up to today? Can I walk to Steve's house? She paused. She didn't like me at Steve's house. Finally, I said, remember what the doctor told me the other day? I have to walk more to build up my lungs after my surgery. I gave her a big smile. Okay, be back in 2 hours for dinner before it gets dark. We tumbled down the stairs laughing. Mom yelled, are you guys all right? Yep, love you, Mom, I called. Be back for dinner. Love you, beautiful boy. I'm so glad I told my mom that I loved her one last time. I walked out of my home into an unseasonably warm day. The sky was deep blue with puffy cotton ball clouds, gently being swept away by the wind. On the way to the orthodontist, my mom told me I was born on a day just like today. It felt good to be alive. Kristin, January 31st, 2018, morning. You look amazing, I said as I closed the car door. I was so happy for Ethan. He went through so much for this beautiful smile. Let me take a quick picture of your gorgeous smile and send it to Daddy. Ethan smiled. His smile relaxed and content. The sun fell softly on the right side of his face, casting his left side in the shadow. Time froze for a minute, and I just drank him in. His eyes were the color of an evergreen tree after a morning rain. His eyes had the same gentle Asian almond arch as Emily and Evan, but Ethan's eyes were larger, almost like they were waiting for the huge future right in front of him. His scruffy, thick chestnut hair poked out from underneath his baseball cap. Note to self, you need a haircut. Ethan always looked like he just walked off a beach with a sun-kissed tan. In third grade, Ethan's class did a self-portrait of themselves. The teachers hung them around the classroom. Where's Ethan? I can't find him, I said, confused. She pointed to a picture of a very tan boy. We laughed so hard. He was right. That was the color of his skin. I snapped the picture and captured the delight on his face and sent it to Mike. Look, no braces. Off to Guilford Coffee House to celebrate. Ethan ordered his usual lox and bagels, and I grabbed a coffee. We sat at a small table in the front window. Ethan, you are a great son, brother, and friend. You will be an amazing husband and father, and I know you will pick a career where you will help others. I love your incredible empathy, I said tenderly. That's it? Ethan laughed. Mom, I know what I'm going to do tomorrow, and the next day, and the next year, and 5 years from now. I knew Ethan wanted to join the Army, but I wanted him to go to college first. I was selfish. I didn't want him to be on the front lines. I told him I wouldn't survive if he were killed at war. Mom, would you say I'm more like a Song or a Miller? You are a mix of both, I smiled. You're definitely Daddy's son. You inherited his intellectual curiosity, his Rick and Morty sense of humor, and his ability to leave a mess everywhere. There was no time to clean because you guys were too busy learning, creating, and imagining, and you both like to challenge the status quo, I said, looking up at him with one eyebrow up. Ethan, I just met with your 8th grade team. They said you didn't hand any homework this semester. Mother. What will I do with you? I have studied, researched this subject. Have you heard of the Netherlands? Ethan smirked. Yes, I replied, acting annoyed. Well, the Netherlands have one of the top educational systems in the world, and you know what? They don't make their students do. Ethan walked over to me, placed his hand on my shoulder with a sympathetic look on his face. They don't make their students do a lot of homework. In fact, the kids 10 and younger do almost no homework. Why do you ask? Because they found that having kids do busy work is counterproductive. They found homework had little to no benefit. And as he walked away from me, he mimicked dropping the mic. In the end, I agreed with him. Like your father, you guys are forgetful. Your minds churned on a dozen things at once. There wasn't enough room to remember notebooks, school lunches, backpacks, or shoes. Do you remember waiting in line for the Block Island Ferry last August? You and your cousins were joking around, excited to be spending the upcoming week together. Block Island was your happy place. Me too. Cece looked down at your feet and asked, Ethan, where are your shoes? With a broad smile, you looked down at your feet and shrugged. Who needs shoes? I grabbed his right hand over the table. You have spent most of your life barefoot. But you had a lot of me in you too. Your compassion, full of all human beings and vulnerable animals, for every living creature without a voice. Your willingness to fight for the underdog, your passion for causes you held dear even when they were unpopular with your peers. your deep love for your family, and your endless well of empathy. I didn't need to teach you empathy, Ethan. You were born with it. I think that's what I love the most about you. When we finished breakfast, I had some errands to run. The radio was off in the car and it was quiet. Ethan asked me, "Do you regret being a stay at home mom? Why did you choose to stay home instead of pursuing your career as an attorney?" My answer was immediate. I was blessed to have the chance to stay home with you, Emily and Evan. I loved being the first to see you guys smile, walk, talk, run, ride a bike, swim, ski, hike. I loved waiting at the bus stop, waving madly until the bus disappeared. I loved going to every school event. I loved watching you guys frantically search the crowd until our eyes met and relief washed over your faces. I had the luxury of going to every baseball and lacrosse games, dancing around with you when you won, and having an encouraging word when you didn't. When you guys needed to take a day because you were sick or needed a moment to breathe, we could do it. I didn't have to choose between my children and work. You guys were always my priority. I even loved the eye rolling, the messy rooms, the unorganized schoolwork, and the promises. "I'll do it in a minute, Mom." Believe it or not, I even loved confronting you about all the empty Dr. Pepper cans under your bed. I said lovingly. "That's right, Mom. I'm a pepper, plain and simple," Ethan laughed. "I know I'm going to have a lot of kids," Ethan said. "I want to walk into my house at the end of the workday and be greeted by 7 children running towards me shouting, 'Daddy's home!'" I smiled. Yes, you guys made me feel like a rock star every time I walked into the house. I loved that feeling. There's nothing quite like it. If my wife has a good paying job, I might like to stay home with the kids. What do you think about that, Mom? "It's the greatest gig in town." He smiled and said, "I think it would be fun." I looked over at him in the passenger seat. He was lost in thought. I grabbed his left hand and said quietly, "I am so lucky to be your mommy." He turned to me and said, "I know." We both cracked up. Yes, Ethan, I loved your sense of humor. When we got home, I headed upstairs to my office. I had a meeting with our accountant. I heard the doorbell ring and Steve's voice. I was happy to hear his voice. I trusted him. He was a good kid. He did well in school, had no agenda, and accepted Ethan's quirky personality. I hung up with the accountant and popped my head into Ethan's bedroom. "What are you boys up to today?" "Can we walk to Steve's house?" Ethan asked. I hesitated. I looked at the clock. It was 2:35 p.m. I really didn't like Ethan going to Steve's father's house. I knew they wouldn't be supervised as closely as they were here. We did just see Dr. Katie, Ethan's surgeon 2 weeks ago. He mentioned Ethan needed more cardio. Because Ethan's chest was growing inward for so long, his lungs had atrophied. He needed to walk and work up to a run to start expanding his lungs. So against my better judgment, I told Ethan he could walk to Steve's house and be back. "Remember, we're having an early dinner to celebrate your races coming off." "All right," he said. "Be back before dark," which is soon, I yelled after him. The boys stumbled down the stairs laughing the entire time. I heard the front door click, close, and the house was silent. I wandered back to my office and finished my work. I glanced up at the clock and realized I better get the chicken in the oven. First, though, I wanted to get Emily's Valentine package together. She was a sophomore at the University of Connecticut Nursing School. I liked to send her packages for different holidays. Emily was my feisty child, the one that was going to push the envelope and see how far it would bend. She was quieter than her brother. She was also tough, brave, and loyal. Behind the reserved facade was a heart full of love. In high school, she was very sick. I took her to a dozen doctors over the years. I watched my precious daughter whittle down to 85 pounds. I felt helpless, but I would not give up until we got a diagnosis. What was sucking the life out of her? Why did she have constant migraines and no energy? I agonized. Emily suffered for almost 3 years, but she never quit. Instead, she dragged herself out of bed, went to school, played lacrosse, and worked. I marveled at her strength, her courage. She was slight. I could wrap her in my arms completely. She only topped off at 5 feet, and she may have just tipped the scales at 100 pounds. Her hair was a perfect blonde of buttermilk and brown, as if the sand from the beaches of Block Island were mixed with the sunlight that bounced off a snow-covered mountain. She also had beautiful, large Asian eyes, but her eyes were crystal blue with yellow specks. The warm yellow I love. I headed to the kitchen but paused at the front glass door. Such a beautiful day. I felt a little nudge. Mouse wanted to go for a walk. "Just a minute, little man. Let me grab your leash," I said. I started walking down my street with Mouse towards town. He was smelling something absolutely fascinating. I stared at him, such a little love bug. "I promise, Mouse, we will find you a great home of your own." I looked up as I heard an ambulance scream by our street. I always get a chill when I hear a fire truck and an ambulance. Let's hope, little man, that whoever's in there is okay. Mouse tilted his sweet face up to me. "Come on, let's get back to home." I started addressing Emily's package, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw two police cars pull up in front of my house. I moved to get a better look out my tall front windows. What's going on? Whose house are they going to? My words hung in the air. January 31st, 2018, afternoon, Ethan. Steve and I joked around the entire way to his house. It's crazy that we've known each other since kindergarten. Steve was the only person I invited to dinner on my 15th birthday. That was just on January 19th. We went to the Le Petit Cafe, just Steve, Dad, and me. Believe it or not, at the tender age of 15, I'm a foodie. So was my dad. Mom stayed home. She's a vegetarian, so this restaurant was not her gig. My dad, Steve, and I had a great time and fascinating conversations. I like testing my dad with my wacky arguments and opinions. I always got a kick out of his reaction. The snow from yesterday melted, forming large puddles on the sidewalk. Steve and I jumped around them on the way to his house. I dressed up to get my braces off, and I didn't want to get my khakis dirty. I don't have a lot of time. I know my mom was making a special dinner to celebrate my metal-free mouth. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans. Yum. We reached Steve's house and headed straight to his bedroom. Steve placed the white shoebox with frayed edges on his bed. Inside were his dad's 3 handguns with bullets. We both picked up a gun, posed, took a picture, and posted it to our private Snapchat group. I felt comfortable with the gun now. We had posed and dry triggered the guns a couple of different days. I knew the guns were not loaded. Today would be my craziest video. January 31st, 2018, afternoon. Kristin. 2 officers got out of their cars with 2 plainclothes women. An unsettling feeling started seeping slowly into my bones. I walked hesitantly towards the front door. My mind raced. Where were my children? I grabbed my phone and looked up Emily's class schedule. She was in class. Evan was at work. Ethan, well, he just left for Steve's house. And Mike was in a business meeting downtown. Nothing to worry about. Right? The officers and 2 women exchanged a look, almost as if they were shoring each other up. I stood perfectly still and took tiny, insignificant breaths. I closed my eyes, and a very faint sound escaped from my lips. No. I opened my eyes. They started walking reluctantly towards my home, my happy home. 1,000 needles danced across my face. My chest tightened. I felt the first crack of my heart. Officer Lawrence knocked on my glass storm door. The front door felt like it was underwater. I had to use all my strength to push the door open against the wave of sadness that would soon swallow us whole. What's going on? They were silent. And why are you guys here? I pointed to the 2 women who stood to the side. Then finally the taller woman spoke up. Do you have any small children in the house? No, I said, perplexed. Why do you want to know if I have children in the home? I tried to keep my voice even. She didn't answer me. She looked sad and then looked down. Once they were confident I had no children in the home, they laughed. Can we come in? I realized I was blocking them from entering. Sure. They stepped into the foyer. Mouse noticed them and started barking, and Dylan, my fearless watchdog, danced over to greet them. I never had an officer in my house and now there were 2. I recognized one of the officers. He was my neighbor, Dane Lawrence. I knew him as a father, playing with his children, mowing his lawn, throwing a football in the pool. But he was not here as a father. He was not here as a neighbor. He was here as a police officer, and that terrified me. I walked back towards the kitchen. Straight ahead on the doorframe were pencil lines depicting my children's growth over the past 5 years. Ethan would be the tallest soon. Mouse was racing around the kitchen, excited by the newcomers. I bent down and picked him up. Calm down, little one, I whispered. The officers followed me. I stood on one side of the island, and they both stood on the other side. A crevasse the size of the Grand Canyon stood between us. The house was silent. Nobody spoke. The oven beeped. We all stared at the chicken roast sprinkled with rosemary, sitting on the kitchen counter. I promised Ethan I would make his favorite meal to celebrate getting his braces off. Just another milestone. The house would soon be filled with smells of comfort, safety, and love. Kristin, Ethan is headed to Yale in an ambulance. You need to get there immediately. Can you drive? Where's your husband? He asked soberly. I could see his mouth moving, but the words just flew past my head and smashed on the kitchen wall behind me. Kristin, he said sternly, you have to find your husband and get to the hospital now. I cocked my head sideways, like a dog who hears a high whistle. I was having trouble registering what he was telling me. I stood mute. Finally, I blurted out, you're scaring me. Why was Ethan being raced to the hospital? Was he hit by a car? Did he get hurt at Steve's house? At the beach? His face did not change. You need to get there as fast as you can. He kept telling me over and over, and each time he said it louder and with more urgency. My heart was thumping so loud, I was sure they could hear it. I called and texted Mike, but he didn't pick up. I looked frantically at Officer Lawrence. He's not picking up. Where is he? I can send someone to get him, he said firmly. Those are just some of my writings from after my son was killed. I'm being asked to wrap up, so I'm just going to tell you that Ethan's Law has now been introduced legislation in Congress. It passed the House and unfortunately will not pass the Senate. But I urge all of you to call and contact your congresspeople. And if you're interested in passing Ethan's Law in your state, please reach out to me. Ethan's Law simply requires that gun owners lock up their guns so that children cannot gain access to them. Thank you.